Hi everyone, and welcome to week 3, module 3, research methods. Today we're going to be talking about different resources that you can use to learn more about the art that you have in your collection or the art that you're interested in buying. Why is this important? Well, it's very important to be an informed buyer. You need to know not only what you like, but what things are worth in the marketplace, what you're buying is authentic. And often when we go to galleries, we do really trust the gallery directors and owners and people who work there. And that's, of course, you should. People go to galleries because they trust who they're buying from. If you decide to buy at auction, however, that very much is buyer beware. So it's really nice to be able to have these tools at your fingertips, to be able to research, to be able to understand what it is that you're actually buying. And sometimes even at auction, things are miscatalogued, so you can buy something that is worth much more than what they think it is. So these hopefully will help you find a little gem like that. So what should you have in your library? Really, you should have some books just to do some general research. So the first is a book like Jansen. If you took an art history course in college, you probably have a book like this at home, or you did at some point. Jansen, Gardner's, Clark, those are the authors of some of the just basic surveys of the history of art. And if you get one of these, it will be really helpful also to go back and listen to last week's module and just to get a sense of the basic history of art and how it all connects and relates to one another. And here are a bunch of other books that have been written, just general books. Grove's Dictionary Art by Jane Turner is very useful. Again, just really kind of basic, gets right to the point if you want to learn about a certain time period very, very quickly and not in much detail. And Peter Falk, Who Was Who in American Art, if you're interested in American art and you see a work by an artist, but you can't really find much about him. If you go to this, it'll give you a very basic biography, where he studied, where he worked, his dates, so you can kind of place him and get a sense of what his career was like. And I will also post a much more extensive bibliography on the resources page. So please be sure to go there for lots of different useful references. In addition to general research, catalog raisonnés are very, very important and useful in building a collection. So a catalog raisonné is essentially a listing, or it is a listing of the complete work of art by a certain artist. These are sometimes broken down into prints by an artist, paintings by an artist, sculptures by an artist, particularly with someone like Picasso. He has the ceramics, he has the lithographs, he has the etchings, just because he was so prolific. But other artists who are not as well known or don't have quite as much research going on into them will have just simply a prints catalog or something like that. But like I said, they're great to go to because they will say something is authentic, something is not authentic. It'll tell you for prints what kind of paper something's on. It'll give you the different states. And it just helps you be more aware of what it is that you are buying. So to find a catalog raisonné, there are two useful websites. You can, of course, just go to your library and ask the librarian. But I always find it useful to know what you want before going to a library so you can quickly, do your request a book and not have to waste that much time while you're there. So ifar.org, which is the International Foundation for Art Research, and also printcouncil.org are very, very useful. And I'm going to show you how to use both of these sites. This is the main page for IFAR. So you'll see it is a nonprofit educational and research organization dedicated to integrity in the visual arts. So on the left, is what we really want to use. We see educational resources. There's art, law, and cultural property, catalog raisonnés, which is what we're going to look at, a provenance guide, and a collector's corner. So come back here and really look into it and see what you can find. It'll be very helpful in terms of your research if you're stuck and if you need something. So we're going to click on catalog raisonnés, and it brings us to this page. So if you know the artist's name, you can do search by artist. We're going to look up Frank Benson, who is an American Impressionist, or you can browse the artist names in the database right below. You can search by the catalog author. You can search by the artist's birth and death, the period of the artist's activity. So it's a great resource to go to. If you have kind of fractured information about an artist, you can come here and hopefully find a catalog raisonné and try to find some more information about an artist. So we're going to search for Frank Benson, and it brings us to this page. So we see it's Frank Weston Benson is his full name, birth year, birthplace, death year, death place, and if we click on that, we're brought to his catalog raisonné. So the title is Etchings, Dry Points, and Lithographs, an illustrated and descriptive catalog. It's written by Adam Paff. And there's the publisher. And if we click on it again, we get even more information. So now we can go to the library with all of this information, get the call number very quickly, and get the book very quickly. Another way to do this is going to the Print Council of America. If you're looking for primarily prints, this is really the place to go. If you're looking more generally, use IFAR. So we're going to click on Oeuvre Catalogs. And again, here's our search engine, our little search box. We type in Frank Benson and submit. And here we get a few more entries. So the first book is The Path. That's what we looked at. What I really like about the Print Council of America is it tells you what you're getting out of it. So it'll say comments. There are 5 volumes to this book. There are 355 entries. You get the inches, so the size and dimensions of each of the works, the states, the different states of a print, and it's illustrated, which is really important. You usually want to find something that's illustrated so you can actually compare the work of art to what is in the book. We have 3 other options here. The Crafting Collection, Frank Benson. There's only 310 entries. It says to 1930, so not his full career. And only a selection are illustrated, so we likely don't want to go to that. And then the Ornament, Frank Benson, Master of Sporting Print. And another one, his Etchings, Dry Points, and Lithographs. So comments, reprints, and augments, Path, and Heitzman. So he's working from Path in this last book. There's 355 etchings and dry points, 7 lithographs, so it's a little more extended. But if you go to both sites, I know as someone who works with prints by Benson a lot, Path is really recognized in the industry as the main catalog raisonné, but Ornament is also useful to use as well as a resource. So this is really a starting point. It's a place to find the books that you need. So once you get to the library and you find a catalog raisonné, what do you do with it? Whistler has an online catalog raisonné, which is very, very helpful. And for our purposes, it will allow me to show you what is actually in a catalog raisonné. So this is put together by the University of Glasgow. Whistler has about 4 other catalog raisonnés. But this is really helpful because unlike a book that's published and that's that, as information changes, as things are authenticated or unauthenticated, everything on here is pretty up to date. It's fluid, it changes, and so that's why I really like to use Glasgow. Plus, you don't have to go to the library, and it's free, and it's wonderful. So this is also a great website just to kind of tool around and do a bit of research and see what's there. So any catalog raisonné, whether it's a book, this online page, it will have a little welcome. It'll tell you how to actually use it. So here it writes, the project explores the creative processes of American-born artist Whistler, and it gives you a little background information into him. If we click on catalog, it tells us even more. So what is in this catalog raisonné? It's the etchings, dry points, and mezzotints produced by Whistler during his working career from 1854 to his death. It's a comprehensive guide to these works. Based on the works themselves, copperplates and documentary or published records. So it's telling you where it's getting its information. So the information falls into two categories: the catalog raisonné itself with each work in different states, as well as a list of impressions that have been located in catalog, mainly in public collections. So it doesn't necessarily include works that are in private collections. If there's a data by attribution, that's been removed here. And it's published online, freely available to all, and won't be published in book form. So, and then below you can browse prints, you can search for a certain print, and you can learn about the different sets and series, because Whistler published his works usually in sets or series altogether, so you can learn about those. So I did a search just for a work, just to show you all an example. So this is a work by Annie. So let's take a look at the cataloging. Number 7, what does that mean? Every catalog raisonné is numbered. So if you're in a gallery and say you see this print, included with the description of it should say Glasgow 7 or something like that. So that way you know you can come to University of Glasgow, you can look up number 7, and you can learn and read a little bit more about the work itself. It's also a way, if you see that catalog raisonné number in an auction catalog or at a gallery, it gives it kind of an extra layer of authentication, I guess I can say. So it shows that it is, really a work by him. So it gives you the date, it tells you the medium, the size, and the signatures. So let's take a look at the signatures. JW at lower left, 1 to 2. What does a 1 to 2 mean? That is the state. So Whistler did 7 states of this print. So he changed it 7 times. That's what that means. So, and within that, the signature changed. So you have JW at lower left for the first 2, Whistler lower right for only the second state. They're removed in the third state. You get Whistler back in the fourth through the final states. You also see with the inscriptions, they change as well. It tells you the set and publication. It's from the French set, 1858. There are 7 states, and there are 55 known impressions. And I mentioned before that there are 4 different catalogs of Whistler, and these are the other references, so you can go to the other catalogs. K, M, T, W, those are the first initial of each of the authors. So again, go to Print Council, type in Whistler, and you can find the complete bibliographical listing for those books if you're interested. So, impressions taken from this plate. If you click on that, you'll see all the different impressions. But what we really want to get to the meat of this catalog raisonné is what's below, where it says date, subject, states, plate, printing, history, references. So they're giving you a lot of information. And you'll see as we look at the date, it describes the date and how it's dated. So Annie probably dates from early 1858, was published in 12 Etchings from Nature, the French set in November 1858. And it gives you a little information about what Whistler was doing at the time. So you can really learn a lot. There's a lot of information in this catalog raisonné. Not all, will have this amount of information, but this is why it's such a great resource. And then you can look at the states. So here's the first 2 states. And it'll basically, this will give you a picture. This is why illustrations are so important, because you can see how they change. And then it will also describe what changes from state to state. So in state 2, the feet and most of the legs are removed, and you get a new curved horizontal and diagonal shading is added at left. These catalog raisonnés are extremely specific. If you look at Rembrandt's, for example, it won't be illustrated, but it will have, the faint diagonal line at the top left corner has been removed, and and then it's added back, the following state. The print people are very detail oriented, I'll say. And here's the third state. So again, changes. Fourth state, again, new heavier shading is added to the background at the left of the skirt. There are spots of foul biting around the figure. The fifth state, the sixth state, slight changes again. The outline top of the legs are clearly defined. Short left to right diagonals are added to our left leg. And so it's very minor changes often between these states. And these earlier states, Whistler is, just playing around, kind of figuring out what he wanted the completed state to look like. And then we have state 7, which is likely what was the final, it was the final state, and it's probably what the published state was. So if you see something out in the marketplace, it's probably the 7th state. But hopefully this gives you a good idea of what you'll find in a catalog raisonné and why they're so important and extremely useful. And I'm so grateful to all of those people who did this incredibly detailed research in order to find all this information. I am constantly amazed by them. So signatures. Often as an appraiser, I walk into a home, I do an estate appraisal, insurance appraisal, and there's a signature I simply cannot read. What do I do? My first step is always to go to askart.com. Askart is, again, a great resource, and I wanted to show it to you kind of in this manner so you can see how to really use it. So here's a signature of Fabiani, State 84. It's legible, but I just don't know anything about the artist, so I don't want to know his first name, where he was working, when he was working, and what his works look like. So I go to askart.com. Here's the main page of askart.com. You'll see all the different letters of the alphabet. You can enter in, I could enter in Fabiani, or I can just click on F, which is what I did. And you can see all of these different artists. So it's not just recognized artists, it's artists that there's not lots of information known about them. So we find Fabiani, Juan Vicente Fabiani, 1910 to 1989, Venezuela. Click on him, and then this is what it brings you to. So you have an overview of the artist, there's a biography sometimes, you see auction records, what his works have sold for, upcoming auctions, and then resources, signatures. So you can compare not only other examples of the artist's work, but you can find a signature. I obviously took this from Askart just for this exercise, but often it'll hopefully match up so you know you found your artist. So this is a good resource to use, and I'll say it's just one of them. You can also find comparables for works of art at all of these different sites. So artprice.com is free. It's mostly for fine art, but it's very nice. It's wonderful. I like it. Invaluable.com it's also an auction site, so different auction houses use it as an online way to have their auctions online. So most of their listings of what have been sold is based on this auction, so it's not incredibly comprehensive, but it is, again, useful. It's a good tool to use. Artnet.com is expensive. It's probably the best of these three. It's the most comprehensive, but I suggest using these other two first. Those are all auction resources. Next week we'll talk about the difference between how things sell at auction and how things sell in the retail environment, because they are different values, different prices. But it's good to see what things are selling for in the marketplace. So if you want to go to a retail environment, First Dibs, Ruby Lane, simply Googling some works will sometimes help you find different galleries or antique shops online. And also visit some brick and mortar stores just to see what is being sold. So I want to show an example of using invaluable.com of what these search engines will actually show. So if we go to Price Archive on the top, we click on that, it brings us to this advanced search. So I'm going to look for something by Whistler. We'll look for Whistler Annie. So I type that into keywords. I could exclude certain words. I could have an exact phrase, at least one of. So again, there are different tools here in this search engine to use. And these are our results. So again, Invaluable is one tool. it gives you an idea of what things sell for, but it has its limitations. So, for example, on the second one, subscribe to view price data, some results you can see, some you have to subscribe and pay for them. I don't know why that is, but it is. So these are all listed chronologically. The most recent one is on top. So Sustenance offered offered a work by Whistler Annie for $600 to $1,000 last April. Realized price 0. So it passed. It did not reach the minimum bid, so it didn't sell. We don't know what lot 7 sold for, unfortunately. Here's lot 21 at Doyle from October 2012, sold for $688. Lot 5, 74, estimated 6 to 8, it didn't sell. Lot 44, $500 in March 2015. I guess this isn't chronological, interesting. But it just gives you an idea of what things sell for. So they sell for between $5 to $1,000 at auction. I'm going to make that distinction very, very clear, and next week I'll explain more about why that distinction is very important. But so if you come upon this, at an auction house, at a gallery, that's kind of what you really should be paying for it. Of course, if you love something, then pay more for it. But I think it's always good to be informed about what things are kind of worth. And there's always, when you're looking at comparable sales, there are things that make something more valuable than others, which is a bit more advanced appraisal studies. It's why people hire appraisers like me to appraise their works of art. But this is very useful to get a basic idea of what things are selling for. And lastly, visit our resources page. I put up a very big biography of things, so take a look at that if you're doing research into furniture, decorative arts, silver, as well as fine art. There are some great books on there, and if you have any questions, of course, feel free to email me, even if you come upon a certain work in building your art collection in the future and you're unsure about something. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about it.